They are feeding you right now, and you do not even feel it happening. Not food, something more valuable. They are feeding your desire, carefully, deliberately, profitably. Every want you feel today, ask yourself, did I generate this, or was it placed inside me? The car you want, the body you want, the status you want, the life you think you chose. You did not choose those wants. You were shown them repeatedly until they felt like yours. And the moment a desire feels like yours, you will work, sacrifice, and suffer to feed it for someone else's profit. Schopenhauer saw this mechanism 200 years before the algorithm was invented, and what he saw should terrify you. Not because desire is evil, because manufactured desire, desire that was built for you by someone else, is the most efficient cage ever constructed. Today, on Codex of Power, you learn how the feeding works and how to starve the machine. What you are about to hear cannot be unheard. Good. You were taught that wanting things is natural, that desire is motivation, that hunger drives achievement. Some of that is true. Native desire, the desire that grows from inside you, is real motivation. It knows where you actually need to go. But native desire is quiet, subtle, hard to monetize, so they replaced it with something louder, hungrier, more profitable. Manufactured desire, desire that was engineered in a boardroom, tested on focus groups, delivered through screens until it felt like your own hunger. The comparison engine. You were shown someone who had more, then shown that more was available, then shown what you needed to buy to close the gap. The gap was never supposed to close. A closed gap is a satisfied customer. A satisfied customer stops buying. The gap must remain open, always. Social media perfected this. Every scroll is a desire-feeding mechanism. Every post is calibrated to activate the will, status, beauty, success, belonging. You did not choose to want what you want after scrolling. The algorithm chose for you, based on what it had already learned made you reach. Every platform, every advertisement, every carefully placed status signal, all of them are desire farmers, and you are the crop. The suffering this produces is not accidental, it is structural. A man who is always wanting is a man who is always available to be sold to. Schopenhauer understood this without ever seeing a screen, because the mechanism is not modern, only the delivery is. He said the will generates desire endlessly. The world did not create the mechanism, it simply learned to exploit it with increasing precision. You are not weak for having been caught in this. Every human being is. The will makes you susceptible by design. The question is what you do now. The answer begins with seeing the feeding. Once you see it, it loses half its power immediately. Schopenhauer showed us how to see it 200 years ago in a book they called Too Pessimistic to Read. Arthur Schopenhauer understood desire the way a surgeon understands a wound, precisely, without sentiment. He was not against desire, he was against unconscious desire. Desire that runs a man without his knowledge and profits someone else. He traced every human desire back to the will, the blind, fundamental drive of existence. And he saw that desire was the will's primary tool for keeping the organism moving. Moving toward what? The will does not know. It simply insists on more, always more. The direction is irrelevant. The hunger is the point. Schopenhauer spent decades mapping this. He watched human beings pursue desire after desire, satisfaction after satisfaction, and arrive nowhere, every time. He was called a pessimist. He called himself a realist. There is a difference. A pessimist expects the worst. A A realist sees what is. What he saw was this: desire does not lead to fulfillment, it leads to the next desire. The fulfillment is always the advertisement, never the product. Wealth is like seawater. The more you drink, the thirstier you become. Schopenhauer. He was not talking only about money. He was talking about every desire the world manufactures for you. The more they feed you, the hungrier you become. That is not a side effect. That is the product. The product is your permanent hunger. And permanent hunger is the most profitable thing a human being can be made to feel. 6 lessons. Each one shows you exactly how the feeding works and exactly how to stop it. Lesson 1. The comparison feed. How they make you want what you would never have chosen. The comparison feed is simple. Show you someone slightly above you. Make the gap feel closable. Sell you what closes it. Repeat. The person above you is not real. They are a composite, built from the best moments of many lives, filtered, lit, and presented as a single coherent existence. You are falling behind. You are comparing your interior, your doubts, your struggles, your full, honest experience to someone else's curated exterior. That comparison was never fair. It was designed to be unfair. Schopenhauer's diagnosis? Comparison is the will reading the social hierarchy and generating desire accordingly. Every animal does this. Humans have simply built an industry around it. Practical move? For 1 week, track every desire that arrives after consuming content. Write it down. Then ask, did I want this before I saw it? The answer will end the comparison feed's power over you. A man who can trace his desires to their source cannot be fed desires he did not choose. The tracing is the antidote. If you have traced a desire and found it was never yours, drop this in the comments. I choose what I want. It is not chosen for me. Native desire survives the tracing. It has no external source to reveal. It simply is because it comes from what you actually are and actually need. Those are the desires worth feeding. Everything else is someone else's harvest. Lesson 2. The Scarcity Feed. How they turn abundance into urgency. Scarcity is the oldest desire amplifier known to commerce. What is rare feels valuable. What is about to disappear feels urgent. What is limited feels worth fighting for. The sale ends tonight. Only 3 left. Others are viewing this now. Every one of these phrases is a manufactured scarcity signal designed to bypass your reason and reach your will directly. Schopenhauer's insight? The will fears loss more than it desires gain. Scarcity activates loss aversion, the deepest and most exploitable fear the will carries. This knowledge is for protection, not for destruction. Use it to recognize the scarcity signal and pause before it moves you. Practical move? When urgency arrives, wait 24 hours. If the desire survives the wait, it may be real. If it evaporates, it was the scarcity signal, not the want. Most manufactured urgency evaporates within hours because it was never about the thing, it was about the signal. A man who waits before acting on urgency is a man whose will cannot be triggered on demand. And a will that cannot be triggered on demand is a will that is finally yours. If you have felt urgency that evaporated the moment you waited, drop this in the comments. Urgency that fades was never mine to begin with. Abundance thinking is not optimism. It is the antidote to scarcity manipulation. When you know there is enough, manufactured scarcity has no entry point.
Lesson 3. The Status Feed. How they rent your identity and charge you for it. Status desire is the will's social expression. It wants to be seen, recognized, placed above others in the hierarchy. This is ancient and real. What is not ancient is the industry that learned to rent you a status signal, to sell you the appearance of position without the substance of it. The watch, the car, the brand, the curated image, all of them saying to the social hierarchy, "I am above you." All of them rented from someone who profits from your need to say it. Schopenhauer said, genuine status comes from what you have developed, not what you have purchased. What you have built, not what you have branded. Practical move: audit every status purchase of the last year. Ask, did this develop me or did it signal me? Development compounds, signals depreciate. A man whose status is internal, built from genuine capability, cannot be sold a status signal because he already has what the signal promises. Build the capability. Let the signal follow naturally or not at all. The man who has the thing does not need the symbol of the thing. That man cannot be fed status desire because he feeds himself from the inside. And what feeds itself from the inside needs nothing from the outside to feel complete. If you are ready to build the thing instead of buy in the signal, drop this in the comments. I build the substance. The signal means nothing. Lesson 4. The belonging feed, the most powerful desire they have ever weaponized. Belonging is not a luxury desire, it is survival level. The will treats exclusion from the group as death, because for most of human history it was. They know this. Every platform, every brand community, every tribe built around a product is exploiting the most ancient fear you carry. Buy this and you belong. Think this and you are one of us. Reject this and you are alone. The threat is always present, usually unspoken. Schopenhauer's answer was radical. He built his belonging from within. One dog, a few books, his own mind. He decided he would rather be alone with truth than together in comfortable illusion. Practical move: identify every group you belong to primarily through purchase or performance. Then ask, if I removed the purchase, would the belonging remain? The answer tells you everything. Real belonging does not require a purchase, it requires presence. Genuine belonging is the one desire the market cannot manufacture, only simulate. The man who is comfortable alone is a man the belonging feed cannot reach, because the belonging feed runs on the fear of solitude. Remove the fear, the feed has nothing to offer. Build comfort with solitude, not isolation, comfort. The difference is everything. Isolation is the will's deprivation. Solitude is the self's sovereignty. When you can choose solitude, belonging becomes something you select rather than something you purchase to escape being alone.
Lesson 5. How to starve the machine without destroying yourself. You cannot eliminate desire. The will generates it continuously. What you can do is stop feeding desires that were not yours to begin with. The first starvation move: reduce the inputs. Every screen you consume is a desire delivery mechanism. You cannot choose what it installs if you do not choose what enters. The second move: introduce delay. Between stimulus and action, insert time. Not forever, just enough for the will's urgency to be examined rather than obeyed. The third move: replace consumption with creation. A man who is creating is not consuming, and the desire to create is the most native desire available. It cannot be manufactured. Schopenhauer created, constantly. Writing was his resistance. Every page was a man refusing to be consumed by the will and instead directing it towards something permanent. Practical move: for every hour of consumption this week, add 1 hour of creation. Writing, building, making, thinking without a screen. Watch what happens to your desire profile inside 30 days.
A creating man wants differently. He wants materials, time, clarity, silence. None of these are profitable to manufacture, which is why the system never taught you to create. The system taught you to consume, because a consuming man's desires are endless, external, and for sale. A creating man's desires are finite, internal, and his own. If you are choosing creation over consumption starting today, drop this in the comments. I create. I am not consumed. Lesson 6. The desires that survive everything. These are the only ones worth feeding. After you have traced your desires, removed the manufactured ones, weighed out the urgent ones, audited the status ones, what remains is yours. These surviving desires are not loud. They do not arrive with urgency signals or comparison feeds or scarcity pressure. They simply persist, quietly, insistently, over years. The thing you have always wanted to build, the person you have always known you should become, the work that has called you across years of distraction, these are native desire. Feed them. Schopenhauer's final gift on desire. When you align your action with your native desire, the will stops being the enemy, it becomes the engine. Because the will is powerful, it is relentless, it does not tire. Directed at what is genuinely yours, it becomes the most powerful force available to a man. Undirected will, scattered across manufactured desire, produces exhaustion, dissatisfaction, and someone else's profit. Directed will, focused on native desire, produces a life. Practical move. Write down the 3 desires that have persisted across the longest period of your life, not the loudest, the oldest. Then ask, what would it mean to finally feed these and only these? The man who feeds only his native desires needs almost nothing the market sells. And a man who needs almost nothing the market sells is the freest man alive. Feed what is yours. Starve what is theirs. That is the whole practice. Simple, lifelong, worth everything. You came here with desires you believed were entirely your own. Some of them were. Most of them were placed. You have just been shown the feeding mechanism, the comparison feed, the scarcity feed, the status feed, the belonging feed. All of them running on your will. All of them profitable to someone else. The old you is dead, the one who consumed without questioning, who wanted without tracing, who fed without knowing he was the crop. That man cannot be rebuilt because you have seen too much. What replaces him is a man who wants deliberately, who feeds selectively, who traces every hunger before he acts on it. You are a weapon, pointed on your own future, not scattered across 1,000 manufactured hungers, concentrated, directed, yours. Schopenhauer refused to be fed. His desires were few, native, and entirely his own. And from that refusal, he built a philosophy that is still feeding minds 2 centuries after his death. He was not fed, he fed himself from the inside. And what feeds itself from the inside produces from the inside. And what produces from the inside lasts. You belong to no one, not to the comparison feed, not to the scarcity signal, not to the status market, not to the belonging industry that profits from your fear of solitude. You belong to your native desire, to the work it points toward, to the life it is trying to build if you would stop spending its energy on someone else's harvest. Stop feeding their machine. Start feeding yours. That is Schopenhauer's warning, and now it is yours. If this reached you, a desire you did not choose just became visible. That is not small. That is the beginning. Codex of power exists for the man who is done being the crop, done being harvested by systems he never agreed to enter. Subscribe, but trace the desire first. Did you generate it, or did this video install it? If you generated it, act on it. That is the practice. Every video on this channel removes another feeding mechanism. Schopenhauer showed us desire. The rest of the map is being built. One question before you go, the oldest one. What is the one desire you have carried longest before the feeds existed, before the screens, before the comparison, that you have never fully fed? What is it? And what would your life look like if you finally did?